So we can go. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. Today, we're going to walk through the Indirect Cost Rate Proposal, or also known as the ICRP, the Additional Cost Workbook, also known as ACW, and the certification process for the upcoming 2026-2027 school year. And just a quick note, this training is specifically for school districts. Charter schools do have a different process. So what we're covering today is for school districts. If you joined us in past trainings, you'll notice that the process itself hasn't changed, just the dates. So therefore, our goal today is to make sure that you feel confident and prepared to submit everything accurately and on time. And we're going to guide you through each step with this slide deck. If you can, before we begin, if you can go ahead and scan this QR code to check in, this helps us track school system participation. The form title is ICRP ACW and certification training, and the date should be November 11th, 2025, and it'll take about a minute. Okay, and then we'll go on to our legal disclaimer slide. And just a quick reminder, this presentation is for guidance only, and it reflects TEA's current understanding of applicable laws and federal guidance. It is not legal advice, so therefore, please consult your legal counsel before acting on anything presented today. And here is our AI disclaimer, artificial intelligence. TEA prohibits third-party recordings of grant-related trainings, including the use of AI tools or assistants to attend, summarize, or record sessions. So therefore, using training content to train AI technologies is also prohibited. Violations may result in removal and future restrictions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, first and foremost, presenting today are myself, Ashley Rubio, and Saida Drenga. She is the project lead of the indirect cost rate. We also have a couple of our team here to assist us with the Q&A, who are James Connolly and Trisha Murray. We do ask if you have any questions to please submit them in the Q&A box, and we will get to them as the presentation goes. And if there's any left, we'll address them at the end as well. For today's agenda, it includes the role of USDE in indirect cost rates, an overview of ICRP and the ACW, the timeline and submission process, and certification steps. So therefore, by the end, you'll understand each step about what's needed to meet the deadlines and how to complete the ICRP ACW. Before we jump into the workbook, I wanted to point out a key resource, which is the Indirect Cost Rate webpage. It's your one-stop shop for everything related to this process. And here you'll find the Excel workbook for the ICRP ACW, the instruction manual, FAQs, and even a PDF to this exact presentation. Just in case you need to review it for a resource, it is on there. And like I said, this is a one-stop shop with all of the resources. If you have any questions, we do have people come to this webpage and review anything that they might have questions over. Otherwise, we are also more than welcome to get questions via our compliance mailbox. So we will send that over at the end of the slide deck. This slide includes clickable links for all the resources I just mentioned. These tools are here to support you, whether you're new to the process or just need a refresher. So like I said, this is a quick, convenient, clickable source, so you can click on these links via the workbook. I'm sorry, the PowerPoint. All right, let's get into some nitty-gritty for the USDE methodology. TEA calculates indirect cost rates based on federal law and USDE approved methodology. TEA is the cognizant agency for all school districts and ESCs, and the current agreement received in 2019 is still in effect through 2026, 2027, which is why the process hasn't changed. And here's the delegation agreement overview with USDE. So since 2020, 2021, TEA must calculate rates annually using 3 years of financial data. Extensions are no longer allowed, and districts must request rates each year. So for 26, 27, we'll use data from FY23, FY24, and FY25. So essentially, the important takeaway is that this process is federally approved and consistent, so the steps that you follow today are the same ones required by USDE. TEA issues two rate types, unrestricted, and that is for grants not subject to supplement, not supplant, and restricted rates for grants that are subject to it. So, just kind of a quick overview. Most TEA grants are used, they do use the restricted rates more than unrestricted, which is typically lower. So, just as a reminder, in terms of supplement, not supplant, this means that federal funds must enhance existing state or local activities and not replace them. So because of the size and complexity of the data required for the indirect cost rate proposal, TEA uses PEMS data for most of the information, although there is a small amount of data that PEMS does not capture, so districts will need to provide that through the additional cost workbook. So then at that time, TEA combines the ACW data with the PEMS data to generate a pre-populated ICRP for each district. The ACW captures data that is not available in PEMS. So this data is pulled by using simple queries from your financial system, which no analysis or cost classification is required. So the ACW submission to request rates for 26, 27, districts must submit the ACW by January 16th of 2026. This submission is your official request. So therefore, without the submission of the ACW, TEA cannot calculate or issue rates. After submission, TEA will then merge your data with the ACW with the PEMS data and generate the ICRP for review and certification. Once TEA receives your ACW, we'll pre-populate the ICRP into two sources. About 10% of the data comes from your ACW, and the rest comes from certified PEMS data. We then merge these to create the complete ICRP, which you'll review and certify. And just as a reminder, data accuracy within the ACW is critical. Incorrect data can distort your rate, and we do recommend keeping a copy of all of your financial records that was used to complete the ACW. So this is an important timeline. What I like to do here is actually print this out and have it by my desk. And the key dates to remember is October the 30th, the ACW became available on the indirect cost rate webpage in teal. January 16th is the deadline to submit the ACW. I know it seems kind of far away, but as time is flying, it seems like that date is tomorrow. So we do want to get a head start on completing those ACWs. And then in between January and April, TEA provides, TEA reviewed submissions and requests, clarifications. If we need to come back to you for any specific data, we'll go ahead and do that at that time. April 16th, TEA provides completed ICRPs for review and certification. May 15th is the deadline to certify the ICRP to be submitted in GFFC reports. And July 1st, rates become effective. So again, if you could just mark these dates or just print out this page and put it close by you, that way you don't forget these upcoming deadlines, that would be amazing and awesome for you to avoid any delays that will be coming up. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to Saida, who will continue with how to complete the ICRP ACW.
Thank you, Ashley. And good morning, everyone. I'm glad you could join us today. And for those who have completed this training before, as Ashley mentioned, consider this just a helpful refresher. And for those attending for the first time, I hope you'll find the information useful as you work through the indirect cost rate application. So in the upcoming slides, I'll walk you through the different tabs in the additional cost workbook and highlight the specific information TA requires from districts. These are, and the data that we request through the ACW are not available on PINS. So this will help ensure your submission is accurate and complete. When completing the additional cost workbook, it's important to know which years of data you need to provide. So for returning districts that already received indirect cost rate for the current school year, 25-26, you only need to submit one worksheet for FY25, which covers your 24-25 school year. Because we already have your data for FY23 and FY24 data. So no resubmission is needed for those years. So the key is to make sure that the FY25 worksheet is complete and accurate, and there is no missing or incorrect data to make sure that there is no delay in processing your request. When completing the additional course workbook, the requirements differ for first-time and returning districts. As noted in the previous slide, districts are only required to submit 3 years of data in the initial year. Returning districts only need to provide data for any fiscal year that haven't been submitted before. Most of the required data can be pulled by running queries in your accounting system. Please keep a copy of all your financial records used to complete the ACW, as we may request clarification letter. Again, accuracy and documentation are key to avoid delays in the process. When filling out the additional cost workbook, make sure the person completing it is familiar with running queries in your district's accounting system. And if there is no expenditure for an item, please enter a 0 and don't leave any fields blank. Taking these steps will help ensure your submission is complete and moves through the review process smoothly. And then again, please double check all entries before submission. Even small mistakes can lead to requests for clarification and slow down the approval process. So next, we'll go over, in the next few slides, we'll go over the different tabs of the actual workbook in detail and look at some examples. The first tab of the additional course workbook, it focuses on the school system information, which is important to ensure that all identifying information is accurate and up to date. So please provide the following information for the ISD to confirm the accuracy of all submitted data, which is the name of the school system. You need to select the ISD name in the pull-down field. And then once the school system is selected, the county district number or the CDN will populate. And the name of the school system and the CDN number will also populate to the header of each worksheet. So this is the only place you need to select the school district name, and then the CDN will populate. And the name of the primary contact, this will be the person who's completing the workbook, the title, the phone number, email, and a date of completion or submission. And if we need to follow up, this is the information we'll use. So therefore, please make sure that the person listed here is someone who can respond to questions about the data submitted. This slide highlights the checklist tab in the ICRP ACW. The checklist is a built-in tool to help ensure that all required components on the ACW are completed before submission. And it's especially useful as a final review. So please, to just help you catch any missing or incomplete sections. We strongly encourage you to review your data entry using the checklist tab before submitting the ICRP ACW. And this will help ensure that all tabs and sections of the ACW are complete, reducing the likelihood of errors and avoiding the need for resubmission. I know our team has definitely observed that the school systems who utilize this tab experience fewer issues during our review process, which helps streamline the approval of the workbook. So we highly encourage you to take a look at it and just make sure you use it as a final review process before you submit your ACW. This slide shows an example of the organizational chart sample in the additional course workbook. And this is just to show districts the required type of organizational chart as part of the ACW submission. The chart should reflect the structure of leadership and key positions relevant to the indirect cost rate calculation. This is a sample that serves as a reference for districts to understand the format and content expected in their organizational chart submission. And every district is required to insert FY25 organizational chart directly into the designated tab within the Excel workbook, which we'll look at next. The process for submitting the organizational chart has not changed from previous years. And the purpose of this chart is to help reviewers understand the structure of your district. So the organizational chart should accurately reflect the district's leadership structure and align with the positions that will be listed in the CEO information section of the workbook. Therefore, this year, school systems need to submit, again, the FY 2025 or school year 24-25 org chart in this tab. And the instructions on how to insert the org chart is found right in the highlighted section of the tab. And remember, do not upload the organizational chart as a separate document in GFFC reports and data collections. It must be embedded in the correct tab of the ACW Excel file. So this is where we'd expect to see the org chart. Again, there's no need to submit a separate one in a GFFC. Can you still hear me, Ashley? Okay. So yeah, okay. So there is no need to submit a separate org chart in GFFC reports and data collections. Okay, so next we'll be looking at the different sections of the additional cost workbook, the FY25 tab. So the first section in function 41 is the general governance and direct cost. And in this section of the ACW, districts must enter expenditures for org codes 702, 703, and 720 broken down by fund, function, and object code. Except for the excluded cost and org 720 direct cost, expenditures within the function 41 are treated as indirect cost for the indirect cost rate calculation. When calculating indirect cost, expenditure within the function 41 are treated as follows. So the org 702 school board is excluded cost, the org 703 tax offices excluded cost, and org 720 direct costs is direct costs. And examples of query in this section will be looking at two examples. First, we'll look at line item 1, which is your Fund 100, Function 41, Object 6100, org 702 school board. In this instance, you do need to run two queries. The query for Fund 100, Function 41, Object 6100, org 702, and the second query for Fund 100, Function 41, Object 6144, org 702. And then you need to deduct the object code 6144 total from the object code 6100 total, and then report the result in the corresponding cell. And then for example 2, we'll look at line item 2, which is your Fund 100, Function 41, Object 6200, Org 703, which is Tax Office. For this one, you only need to run one query, the query for Fund 100, Function 41, Object 6200, Org 703, and then report the amount in the corresponding cell. And these examples illustrates how to isolate the correct expenditure for reporting. Next up, we have TRS on behalf payments and/or Medicare Part D payments. For this section, you need to enter expenditures for all TRS on behalf payments and/or Medicare Part D payments made during the applicable fiscal year by the appropriate fund, function, and object 6144 code as requested in the worksheet. These payments are considered excluded in the indirect cost rate calculation. And an example query will look at line item 1 here as well for Fund 100, Object 6144 for function 1x. One query is needed, the query expenditure for Fund 100, function 1x, Object 6144. Then you report the resulting amount in the corresponding line item cell. The next section is the food and meal costs of food service program. And this section addresses the food and meal costs related to your district's food service program. And these costs must be reported accurately because they are excluded from the indirect cost rate calculation. And the report expenditure for food and milk by, again here, by the appropriate fund, function, and object 6341 as requested in the worksheet. An example query will be for line item 1, Fund 100, object 6341, function 3x, and you only need to run one query, which is your Fund 100, function 3x, object 6341, and then you report the resulting amount in the corresponding line item cell. The next section is depreciation expense amounts. This section requires districts to enter the total depreciation expenses charged to governmental activities for buildings and improvements and furniture, equipment, and vehicles. I will definitely emphasize over here that accurate reporting of depreciation is really essential and required. Under-reporting or over-reporting will significantly distort the calculated indirect cost rates. So please pay attention to this section. The information is located in the notes to the financial statement section of your district's annual financial report, AFR, under headings such as capital assets or capital asset activity. And what needs to be reported in this section is the total cost for buildings and improvements and furniture, equipment, and vehicles. And these amounts cannot exceed the net depreciation amount listed for the assets in the AFR. The steps to determine the correct amount is you review the capital assets activity table in your AFR. Then you determine the increase for buildings and improvements, including capital lease, if applicable and itemized. Determine the increase for furniture, equipment, and vehicles, and ensure the total increase equal the amount of depreciation charged to governmental activities. And then you do need to remove any depreciation expense charged to federal funds, and then report the remaining amount in this section. The next section is payment to fiscal agent and/or member districts of shared service arrangements, or SSS. This section addresses payments to your district's fiscal agent or member districts of shared service arrangements but only those funded with federal grant funds. So step one is going to be to answer the yes or no question. Did the LA make payments to a fiscal agent and or member district of an SSA funded with federal grant funds from function 93? So if you answer no, you can skip this section. But if you answer yes, you must provide detail for all payments made to fiscal agent or member districts for federally funded SSAs. So the next step will be to gather the data, and you need to run a query of payment history for function 93, object 649X, and then you report, this report will show the SSA payments by fund. Then you need to itemize these payments in the worksheet based on funding source. And then the step 3 will be to include the assistance listing number, or ALN, which is formerly known as a CFDA number. And the ALN confirmed that the payment was made with federal funds. And if there is no ALN number, the payment was likely not federal and should not be reported here. These payments are considered excluded cost in the indirect cost rate calculation, except for the first $25,000 of each payment, which is counted as direct cost. You will enter the total amount here, the total payment amount here, but the ICRP will automatically apply the $25,000 rule during calculation for this section. And next up, the next section is the federal subrecipient item, federal subgrants, and federal grant pass-through funds. This section applies only if your district distributed federal grant funds as a subgrant or a pass-through funds to another entity. The subrecipient item is a payment of federal grant funds by the district to another entity to carry out part or all of a federal grant program, and the subrecipient payee is the entity receiving the subgrant. This section is used if your district issued a subgrant for food service program and or other pass-through funds given to other entities that are not your fiscal agent or member district of an SSA. One thing I would like to highlight here, for the purpose of the ICRP, we have separated payments to fiscal agent SSAs from other federal recipient items to define costs. So step 1 here is going to be to answer again the yes or no question. Did the school district distribute federal grant funds as a subgrant or as federal grant pass-through funds? And if the answer is no, you can skip to the next section, and most districts will answer no. But if you answer yes, then you need to complete the section by entering all the required details. And the first one would be to select the fund function and object codes from the pull-down lists provided in the workbook. Then the payee name and description of the subrecipient item, the ALN number, and then which again confirms that it was federally funded, the begin and end date of the subgrant, and the total amount of the payment. The next section we have is contingencies, and this section is for reporting contingency amounts, which are your funds set aside for unexpected expenses. And what you need to enter here is, again, you need to select the fund function and object code from the pull-down lists provided in the workbook. And then you need to enter a clear description of the contingencies and the amounts allocated. Ensure that the description accurately reflects the nature of the contingency. And an example we have here is unforeseen risks, such as lawsuit settlements or refunds to TEA. And these funds are excluded from the calculation of the indirect cost rate. And TA uses this information to confirm that contingency funds are properly classified and accounted for in the indirect cost rate calculation. The next section we have is Chief Executive Officer information. And this section requires districts to report all expenditures for the Chief Executive Officers and their immediate support staff, including the state and local salaries and fixed costs categorized by function and position title, and the cost facility and administrative associated with these positions are indirect costs when paid with state and local funds. However, when calculating the restricted indirect cost rate, these costs must be moved from the indirect cost rate, the indirect cost pool, to the modified total direct cost, or the base, which consists of your direct and unallowable cost. The key requirements is that these positions must correspond to the organizational chart inserted in the ACW organizational chart tab that we looked at earlier. So we will verify alignment between the chart and the data entered here. And positions to include in this section are the superintendent and the immediate executive or administrative assistant to the superintendent, all other staff members who act as CEOs of any district-wide component, regardless of their title. Some examples is your assistant superintendent, your deputy superintendent, a CFO, or your HR executive director, and any immediate executive or administrative assistants to these CEO positions. To complete the section, you need to select the function code from which the indirect salary and fixed costs are paid using the pull-down list. Enter the position title, the salary amount, and fixed cost amount paid from state and local funds. And then you also need to enter the staff count for the position. And if the position is funded from multiple functions, just create multiple line items, but only enter one for the staff count on one line. Accuracy here is very critical, and incorrect classification or missing positions can lead to TA requesting clarification. The next section addresses the terminal leave, which refers to payments made to departing employees outside of normal payroll. Examples include your severance pay or dismissal wages, or other payments beyond your standard salary and wages. Here again, you need to answer the question, a yes or no question. Did the LDA make payments to one or more departing employees for terminal leave? If no, you can skip this section. And if yes, you must provide detailed information for each payment. So you need to select the fund function and object code from which the payment was made, then the location, job title, and the name of the employee. And then you also need to select from the pull down whether the payment was, if it was classified as direct or indirect, and then you enter the amount paid. Most districts do not have terminal leave because they do not provide formal vacation leave. So payments such as severance pay or dismissal wages would fall under this category. So this is the last section of the additional course workbook. After this, we'll move on to common mistakes and then cover how to submit your completed ACW. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to Ashley to go over the common mistakes we come across during our review process. Ashley, take it away.
All right. So if any of you have been in this training before in previous years, some of you might know that I like to use this section with an analogy. Um, I like to use it as kind of like a recipe, a checklist. Like if you were the chef and we were the judges that you were about to present us with your meal. So the reason why I focus this section that way is because these are areas of opportunity to avoid resubmissions. As we've stated in the beginning of this presentation, we do our best to provide resources for y'all so that way we can ensure that, we can get a good recipe to us and then we finish the review and then we can follow the next steps. So with that being said, I'm going to go over the next few slides with some common mistakes that we have noticed in the past couple of years during our reviews. This first one is the depreciation expense. We've noticed that some workbooks sometimes have come to us with either blank depreciation amounts or the wrong amount was reported. So I do want you all to kind of focus on this area by using the checklist that Saida had mentioned in the beginning. We do have a checklist tab that is embedded in the ACW workbook for y'all to use as a tool. Like she mentioned, it's good to kind of use that checklist tool right after you're done completing your data input into the ACW, just as a double check to make sure that everything was completed in its entirety. In addition to that tool, we also have incorporated what is called conditional formatting. Essentially, what that does is when you're completing your ACW workbook, some highlights will come out as a new feature indicating that either something wasn't completed, it was left blank, or something wasn't selected in the drop down, or some other specific reason, you'll see that highlight, essentially to say that something is missing. So that's a feature for y'all as well as an additional tool, so that way you can see if if you need more input for the ACW. So just as a reminder for depreciation, we do want you to enter the total depreciation that is charged to governmental funds, including expenses for buildings and or improvements, furniture, equipment, vehicles. And again, incorrect data reporting can distort your indirect cost rates, so please ensure that you're looking at this. The next section is the payments to fiscal agent member districts of shared services arrangements. So in this section, we have seen as well incomplete data. So you can see here that in the row, you're gonna need the name of the SSA, the ALN number, the begin date, end date, and the amount. So please make sure that you're completing this in its entirety, because even if you forget to put the begin date, but you have everything else, that will still come back an error. We'll have to go back and ask you to redo that section. Also, please ensure that if you select yes to this section, there is a little, is it this one? Yes, there's a drop down list right there where it says select answer from pull down on the top right hand corner. You're going to select yes or no. If the answer is no in this section, you don't have to complete anything else. But if it's yes, just as I mentioned before, please ensure that you're completing this in its entirety. Okay, some more areas to focus on are the federal subrecipient items, federal subgrants, and federal grant pass-through funds. And again, just like the others, we have seen incomplete data and no selection from the pull-down list. So just ensure that you're selecting from that pull-down list at the top right-hand section. Also, there is a pull-down list for the fund, function, and object codes. So please ensure that you're selecting those accordingly. Make sure that there is an ALN number listed here. If there is no ALN number, then that just means that payment should not be reported in this section. And then again, the next section is contingencies. We have noticed no selection from the pull down list for the fund, function, and object codes, or there is missing descriptions or amounts. So please ensure that this section is completed in its entirety. If this section does not apply, please enter 0. Never leave the fields blank because missing data is one of the most common triggers for TEA to follow up on requests. Last but not least, I would say this is probably the biggest area of opportunity to focus on. We do see a lot of common mistakes in this section, which is the CEO section, Chief Executive Officer information. Either no selection from the pull down list, the number of positions are missing, positions listed that should not be under this section. So going back to our resources, I do always recommend looking at those. We have an FAQ document in the ICRP webpage, and in that FAQ document on questions 10 and 11, we do provide answers to some examples of positions that should not be listed in this section, some being campus principals, special education programs, federal programs, transportation programs, food service programs, art programs, or board of trustees. So just keep in mind to use that FAQ document and list the applicable CEOs in this section. All right, so now we're going to get into now that you've completed the ACW workbook, let's go over how to submit it. So what we're going to do is we're going to log into Teal. From there, you're going to go to GFFC reports and data collections. You'll then select upload response documents. You'll choose ICRP additional cost workbook from the template menu, and then you'll submit this in Excel format only. PDFs or other formats won't be accepted. It does need to be in Excel format only. After selecting the correct template in the previous step, you're then going to select the response document as the document type. You're going to choose the school year 2026, 2027. You'll click Upload Document. And as a reminder, before uploading any of your documents, we highly recommend confirming all of the sections are completed in the ACW accurately and in its entirety by using the checklist. And just as a reminder, the file that must be submitted needs to be in Excel format. Again, PDFs or other formats will not be accepted. Also, as an additional reminder, please double check that your organizational chart is embedded in the correct tab within the ACW. We don't take a separate organizational tab within GFFC reports. We ask that you upload it within the embedded tab within the ACW. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Saida. We're almost done with this relay of our presentation, and she's going to discuss the next steps in the ICRP process.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so once your district submits the ICRP additional course workbook by the January 16, 2026 deadline, here's what happens next. So we will collect the final certified PIMS data for the 24-25 school year in the spring. Then the data is merged with the district submitted ACW data to create a pre-populated indirect cost rate proposal or ICRP for each district requesting rates. This process ensures that the ICRP reflects both your submitted additional costs and the official PIMS financial data. And then on the next slide, we'll cover what happens after TA posts the completed ICRPs and how districts will certify the acceptance of their pre-post rates. So after TA merges your ACW data with PIMS data and generates the pre-populated ICRP, here's what happens. We'll post the completed ICRPs into GFFC reports and data collections, and districts must review the pre-populated ICRP carefully to ensure all data is accurate. And once reviewed, districts must certify acceptance of the pre-post indirect cost rates. Key reminders, certification is required before the rates become effective, and the new rates will go into effect on July 1st of 2026. And on the next few slides, we'll just quickly walk through how to review your district's ICRP and complete the certification process and upload the signed certification page back to TAA. So once TEA posts your district's pre-populated ICRP, again, it's really important to review the financial worksheets carefully. Each page is labeled for easy reference. So the key sections to focus on, first up, we have U1 all years, which are found on pages 2 to 3. which is the summary of the unrestricted rate data averaged across all 3 years. And then we have your R1 all years, which are pages which are found on pages 5 to 6, which is the summary of the restricted rate data averaged across all 3 years. These summaries provide the foundation for your indirect cost rate. So make sure the data aligns with your district's financial records and also the ACW submission. Next up, we have the restricted rate adjustment overview. And this slide focuses on the restricted rate adjustment section of the ICRP, which appears on page 4 of the document. And what this is the restricted rate adjustment summarizes the average adjustment applied across all 3 years of financial data. So these are the costs that are moved from the indirect cost pool to the modified total direct cost, or the base, which consists of direct and unallowable costs. On the U1 unrestricted rate tab, district expenditures are classified as either excluded, unallowable direct, or indirect cost based on the fund function and object. So the costs that are classified as indirect cost on the U1 tab, used for the calculation of the unrestricted rate, are adjusted to determine the restricted rate. So the costs that are being reclassified from indirect to the base include your general management costs that are associated with the chief executive officers and their immediate officers and their related costs. So these adjustments ensure compliance with the federal supplement, not supplant requirement for grants where restricted rates apply. So section 4 of this page, of the restricted adjustment page, provides the average amount that is moved from the indirect cost pool to the modified total direct cost on the restricted rate calculation tab. And why this matters is, as Ashley mentioned earlier, the restricted rate is used for most TEA administrated grants, so accuracy is critical. This slide shows an example of the yearly data breakdown within the ICRP. These pages provide supporting financial data used to calculate both the unrestricted and restricted indirect cost rates. And specifically, your year 1, which is the FY23 data, is found on pages 7 through 10. And your year 2, FY 2024, is found on pages 11 through 14, and year 3, FY 25, are found on pages 15 through 18. And each year section include the data pulled from 2 sources that will be the district submitted additional cost workbook, or the ACW, and the TSDS PIMS financial data. It's important for districts to carefully please review these sections to ensure accuracy, especially since this data directly impacts the calculated rates. And if discrepancies are found, districts should reach out to TEA for clarification or a correction. Okay, filing out the ICRP certification. Before we move forward, it's important to note that the ICRP certification is different from the ACW certification. The ACW certification that we looked at earlier is embedded in the additional cost workbook, and it confirms that all submitted data in the additional cost workbook is true and accurate, and includes the correct information of the person completing the workbook. Whereas the ICRP certification that you see here, on the other hand, it's the district's formal certification of the information that is contained within the indirect cost rate proposal itself. And this certification page is located on page 1 of the ICRP document. So to accept and finalize your district's rate, this certification of indirect cost page must be completed, signed, and submitted back to us. And key points here: the certification must be signed by the superintendent, CEO, or CFO. and it must correspond to the correct school year. In this case, it needs to be for 2026-2027, and the signature and submission of the ICRP certification affirms that the district accepts of the proposed rates within the proposal. And this is the formal acknowledgement that the rates will be applied starting July 1st of 2026. And filling out the ICRP certification, now that we've discussed what the ICRP certification represents, these are the steps to complete and submit it. You need to print the certification page from the ICRP document, which is page 1. Then enter all required information on the printed page, have the superintendent, the CEO or CFO sign and date the certification, scan the signed and dated page to create a digital copy, and then you upload the scanned certification into GFFC reports and data collections as ICRP certification. And for submitting the ICRP certification, you need to log into TEA through TIL, and and then navigate to the GFFC reports and data collection. Select upload response document from the response template title dropdown. Choose ICRP certification, and then from the response doc type dropdown, select response document. And from the school year dropdown, select 2026-2027, and then just click upload document to submit the scan certification page. And that would be the last step. And this upload again confirms your district's acceptance of the proposed indirect cost rates. And without this step, your district's indirect cost rate cannot be finalized or become effective on July 1st of 2026. And one final reminder before we wrap up, when uploading documents, just a general rule for all documents, just make sure you index your documents with the correct document title and school year. This ensures accurate reporting and just prevents delays when we generate reports for review. After all submissions are complete, we will post the approved and certified indirect cost rate on the indirect cost rates webpage, and also will be uploading individual district notification letters into GFFC reports and data collections. Just to quickly recap the key dates. Again, the ACW was made available on October 30th, and the due date for the ACW is January 16, 2026, and then the completed ICRPs are going to be posted in GFFC for district review by April 16. And then we give districts about a month to review and submit the certification. And the due date for that is April 15. And then the rates are going to become effective starting July 1st. We'll post official indirect cost rates on our webpage, and the rates will become effective. And again, as Ashley has emphasized, meeting these deadlines is critical to ensure your district receive its indirect cost rates on time. And that concludes our presentation on requesting indirect cost rates for the 2026-2027 school year. We did cover the full process from completing the additional cost workbook to certifying the indirect cost rate proposal and submitting all required documents. And if you have any questions or need assistance with the workbook, please contact us at compliance@tea.texas.gov. We monitor this inbox daily, and we do aim to respond within 1 business day. So this makes it the fastest way to get help from me or my team. And just a quick heads up, we do just keep an eye out for a gov delivery email with a registration link for our January office hour. We do have an office hour that's coming in January, and it's another great chance to bring any extra questions you might have for us. And that is the last thing. I will put up a QR code, and in the meantime, if there are any questions in the Q&A, we'll address those at this time. And this QR code is, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback really help us make future trainings even better. So please, before you log out, take a moment to share your thoughts. Just scan the QR code to complete a quick feedback form. And yeah, we thank you for being part of today's session.